Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're having a wonderful week. Like always, I am continuing with my Cyndi Lauper discography journey, and we've made it to her third studio album from 1989, 31 years ago, called A Night to Remember. I am always extremely excited to check out a new Cyndi Lauper album, and I am looking at the track list. There are 12 tracks. The album is 40 minutes, and I don't recall hearing any of these songs before. However, track number 2, I Drove All Night. I have heard this song before. I just don't think I've heard Cyndi's version. I've been listening to Celine Dion's cover of I Drove All Night for the longest time. The first time I heard it was probably when I was a teenager. And I originally thought that I Drove All Night was an original Celine Dion song. Until I saw the track list for this album and I saw track number 2 was I Drove All Night, and I was a little shook. You know, my whole life was a whole big fat lie. So yes, Cyndi's version of I Drove All Night is the OG. It is the original. So I'm very much excited to dig into that track. So enough talking, let's get into the album with track number 1, Intro.
To escape, the city was sticky and cruel. I was dreaming while I jumped the long straight road at night. This fever for you is just burning me up inside. I drove all night to get to you. Think about you when the night is cold and dark.
Alrighty, and that was tracks number 1 and 2, Intro, which then progressed into track number 2, I Drove All Night. Now, I do want to apologize quickly because I didn't know that before Cyndi Lauper's original version of the song, there was actually someone else who recorded the song. The song was originally given to Roy Orbison, who recorded the song in 1987. The year before his death, but that version of the song wasn't released until 1992. Now, I've never heard of Roy Orbison before, so I'm definitely gonna have to check out his music. But I just want to clarify that the song was originally intended for Roy Orbison, who recorded it in 1987 and then officially released the song in 1992 after Cyndi's version. And after listening to Cyndi's version of I Drove All Night, I can confirm that this was my first time listening to Cyndi's version. I don't recall ever hearing it before, and I'm gonna be honest, I wasn't the biggest fan of it. And the reason I feel this way is obviously because I grew up with Celine Dion's version, and they're such different artists, Cyndi and Celine. They have their own aesthetic and personality, and of course they're gonna sound different. I just prefer Celine Dion's version. I think Celine's version packs a lot more punch. Of course, it's Celine Dion. She has that powerful instrument of hers, but also the production. I enjoy the production of Celine's version a lot more than this one. So I don't ever really see myself going back to Cyndi's version of I Drove All Night. It just didn't really resonate with me. But I do quickly want to check out Roy Orbison's version of I Drove All Night, just very quickly. Wow, that was quite interesting. I'm not used to hearing a man sing I Drove All Night, but I actually liked it. I think the reason why I didn't enjoy Cyndi's version as much as Celine's is because I found Cyndi's voice to be too soft and quiet in her version. I just wish Cyndi would have elevated the song to where, not necessarily to where Celine took it, but I just wish there was more oomph to the vocals in Cyndi's version. It was just too quiet, in my opinion. I guess what I'm trying to say is I just wanted more emotion from Cyndi's version. But honestly, what do I know? Because Cyndi's version did receive a Grammy Award nomination for Best Female Rock Vocal Performance. I'm just curious to know if I would have enjoyed this song a lot more if I hadn't heard Celine Dion's version, which unfortunately is something I can never experience. So for those of you who grew up around this time who heard Cyndi's version, first, I do envy you because now I can't get Celine Dion's version out of my head, unfortunately. But anyway, let's move on to track number 3, Primitive. Okay, that was track number 3, Primitive, and the highlight for me of this song was the saxophone. I mean, the saxophone is my favorite instrument of all time, so I always like hearing it in a song, and to me, it's always one of the highlights of a song, hearing a saxophone. When it comes to the actual song itself, I didn't really care for it. I didn't find it that interesting, to be honest with you, and I'm not the biggest fan of this album so far. We're 3 tracks in, and I'm not enjoying it as much as True Colors and her debut album, She's So Unusual. I don't know what it is, but there's something about the energy on this album that's very subdued. I can't really put my finger on it, but the same energy isn't there. The same energy that was on her True Colors album and She's So Unusual, it's not on this album for some reason. I don't know if I'm the only one, but when I listen to Cyndi's voice on this album, she just doesn't sound interested. And I could be completely wrong about that, but I don't know, I'm just not really feeling this album so far. So we will now move on to track number 4, My First Night Without You.
I'm driving home from work. The sun is in my eyes, so I can see my first night without you. My first night without you. I sit here like a fool, remembering everything. My first night without you. My first night without you.
There we go. Yes! Oh. Cyndi is finally back. That is what I'm talking about. This was such a great song. I don't know if I'm overreacting. I might be. I don't care. I really enjoyed this song. This is my favorite song on the album. The way she sang this song is how she should have sang I Drove All Night. So much emotion, and it was beautiful. The production, I love how it started off quiet and she was kind of whispering, and then the production came in and it just blew me away, honestly. This sounds like the Cyndi I'm used to from her True Colors album and her debut album. I just loved that transition at the very beginning where it was quiet, her voice was very soft, the snapping of the fingers, and then it transitioned into, I don't know, the main production of the song. It was very rock oriented and it was just phenomenal in my opinion. I could honestly listen to this song over and over and over again. And once again, I don't care if I'm overreacting. Was this song a single? I'm very curious to know. This was the second single off the album. It does say that the song failed to make a big impact on most charts in the world. Well, that's the most tragic thing I've read all week. That's really disappointing because this really is a great song. It's a great Cyndi Lauper song. But anyway, let's move on to track number 5, Like a Cat. Ooh. Ha! This is such a Cyndi Lauper song. Okay, that was track number 5, Like a Cat. Like I said already, this is such a Cyndi Lauper song. I loved the lyrics. The lyrics to this song is taking me back to her first album, She's So Unusual. They're so quirky and funny. She is using the metaphor of like being a cat when this person threw her out the window. I also feel like there's some sexual innuendo happening here. I only let you stroke me like you thought I'd be purred, curled up by your fire. And then she goes on to say, you rescued me, I didn't want to be saved, I got tired of your missionary position, babe, when you threw me out the window. So you can't control Cyndi. You can't tame her like a cat. You can hold her, you can stroke her, you can pet her, but you can't keep her. And when she is thrown out the window, when she's no longer needed, she will land on her feet because Cyndi Lauper has 9 lives. I don't know if this would be a Cyndi Lauper song I would listen to all the time. It probably wouldn't be. Again, I'm just having an issue with the energy in her voice and her performance on this album. I feel like the same energy that she had on her first 2 albums just isn't here. So if I was to go back to this song, it would be for the lyrics, because the lyrics are a lot of fun to read. So we will now move on to track number 6, Headed West. Okay, that was track number 6, Heading West, and I thought this was a nice song. I thought she sounded great on it. I really liked her vocals on it, and I liked the meaning behind the song as well when I was reading the lyrics. Overall, I really enjoyed this song. She says here that she's heading west without a sad goodbye. I'm like a letter with no address, just like a book I read. I'm heading west without a sad goodbye. Now that I think about it, there is something sad about this album. She does seem to be singing about traveling west, going out west, and driving all night to get to you. And there's also a sense of, I don't know if she broke up with someone. I'm gonna have to research where she was in her life at this time in 1989. She's leaving without a sad goodbye, and in track number 4, she's saying, my first night without you. So I'm wondering if she broke up with someone. Cyndi Lauper, 1989. I am looking at an article from The Mirror, and it says in 1989, when she was living alone in a New York hotel after her hits started to dry up, the singer, now married to actor David Thornton, hit rock bottom after splitting from her long-term partner and manager, David Wolf. She says, I had to come so far, but I felt like I had failed. I disappointed the record company because I didn't come home with an armful of awards like they expected. It was always like that. It was never enough. It was such a dark time for me. I would go into the studio and then sit in my dark room and drink vodka. I had to spend most of my time alone. I was grieving. I thought the sadness would never go away. And this was around 1989 when this album dropped, so that definitely puts this album into perspective now. She wasn't very happy, she was going through a lot, she wasn't performing the way her record label thought she would. She wasn't winning the awards, she wasn't achieving the same commercial success like she initially did. And you could definitely hear it, in her voice on this album. The energy, the lack thereof, and it is quite sad. And it does say that Heading West was the third single released off this album, thank God. But unfortunately, the song didn't really chart anywhere in the world. It only charted in 4 places, but that's it. So there definitely is a theme of traveling and moving on with one's life on this album. So now let's move on to track number 7, A Night to Remember. Okay, and that was track number 7, A Night to Remember. I loved the melody on this song, and this was another great song in my opinion. I really enjoyed it. It is quite sad though, just like the majority of the album so far. This album doesn't put you in the happiest mood. It doesn't really make you want to dance, but definitely makes you feel something. All these feelings I can't erase from my heart. Endless dreams around my shoulders. I cannot free this restless heart. It was a night to remember. Not enough time for you to stay. Can't forget the look on your face. This is sad. This album is breaking my heart just a little bit. So now we will move on to track number 8, Unconditional Love. Okay, and that was track number 8, Unconditional Love, and I enjoyed this song as well. I like the meaning behind it, and she does bring the vocals. I will say she does bring the vocals on quite a few of these songs. Unconditional Love, it doesn't matter what I say, because it always seems you're taking me the wrong way. But if you could read my mind, you'd see I fight myself all the time. When I see you, I surrender. Unconditional Love. We are continuing with the somber feel of the album. Quite a few ballads and slower songs on this album, which I don't mind. I don't mind an album filled with ballads and slower songs. It's a nice, refreshing change up. You could definitely tell she wasn't in the mood to be her quirky, bizarre, outgoing self. You could definitely, like I said multiple times already, you could hear it in her voice on quite a few of these songs. She could be that bubbly, fun girl that we're used to on this album, A Night to Remember. So now let's move on to track number 9, Insecurities. Insecurious. I've never heard that word before. Insecurious. What? Okay, and that was track number 9, Insecurious, and I liked it. It's definitely one of the more upbeat songs on the album, and the electric guitar. The saxophone is my favorite instrument of all time, but the electric guitar is a close second. I love it so much. This probably would be a Cyndi Lauper song I would listen to. Again, if I was to listen to it again, I would listen to it for the production, but that's about it. I don't know, it didn't really resonate with me. So we will now move on to track number 10, Dancing with a Stranger. Okay, that was track number 10, Dancing with a Stranger. Yes, I really liked this song. Once again, the electric guitar took my breath away, and it was a lot of fun. This song was also reminding me of old school Cyndi. She definitely brought more of her personality into this song, which I really liked. So let's continue on to track number 11, I Don't Want to Be Your Friend. Okay, and that was track number 11, I Don't Want to Be Your Friend. I actually really like this song, and no coincidence, it says at the bottom, written by Diane Warren. That is why I really enjoy the song, because Diane Warren had a hand in crafting this song, and I love Diane Warren so much. Is it me, or I don't know if I'm the only one, but Cyndi's voice sounds much deeper in this song than a lot of her other songs. I don't know if it's just me, but initially when I started listening to this song, it almost didn't sound like her. We are continuing the theme of moving on and breaking up. I don't think I care. I don't want to be your friend. I'll forget we ever met. I'll forget I ever let you into this heart of mine, baby. So she's living with a broken heart now. This is pretty much one of the bigger themes of the album. She broke up with someone and she's moving on. She's traveling and she's just going away in search of something. But then she does say, I'm not over you yet, and I don't think I care. I don't want to be your friend. So we've come to the end of the album, track number 12, Kindred Spirit. Well, that was short and sweet, just over 1 minute, and I really liked the melody. It was a nice way to wrap up the album. If you think you're hearing something and you can't think what it is, if you feel a quiet longing, lift your heart into the wind. There you'll find my kindred spirit. There you'll meet me as a friend. It is just a kindred feeling and a song to let you in. So that is all 12 tracks of A Night to Remember, and I was a little disappointed, I won't lie. Out of the 3 albums I've listened to in Cyndi's discography, this one, A Night to Remember, is definitely my least favorite out of the 3. It's definitely a more moody and somber album. There are quite a few ballads, and it does break your heart just a little to also know what she was going through at this time in her life. A breakup and not feeling like she was performing the way she should when it came to her commercial success, winning the awards and having the hit singles. She just wasn't performing, and her record label was pointing that out to her, and it was making her sad and depressed. Even though I wasn't the biggest fan of this album, there were still some really great songs on here. I do like how she put her personality into some of the songs, the personality that we're used to from Cyndi, like track number 5, Like a Cat. And also Dancing with a Stranger. Dancing with a Stranger was a lot of fun to listen to. I just find, though, a lot of these songs are quite forgettable. You can definitely tell that her energy was more somber and it wasn't as energized as it was on her True Colors and her debut album. I imagine at this time in her career in 1989, I mean, I'm just speculating at this point, but this album was released 3 years after True Colors, which was in 1986. So I don't know if there was pressure from the studio to put out another album, and she just didn't want to just yet. She just wasn't ready, but she had to. Or maybe she wanted to. Maybe she had a lot to say about the breakup and where she was in her life, so she put all that heart and sorrow into the songs and her singing. I am looking at the reviews for this album, which I don't usually care about at all, and it looks like overwhelmingly this album received negative reviews. The album was met with mixed to poor reviews. And it does say here that although the album is called A Night to Remember, Lauper jokingly preferred to call it A Night to Forget, given its poor reviews and disappointing sales, compounded by the problems she encountered with producer and boyfriend David Wolf during the production of the album. So it looks like the whole production and the whole recording of this album was just a big mess of sorts. And one reviewer here said that how embarrassing to have placed hope in this woman. Oh, I'm so sad right now. I mean, she is so talented, and I just think she could have done so much more. Am I wrong? And also, one cannot help but compare Cyndi to other prominent artists from this time in the mid to late 80s. Someone like Madonna, who had all the success in the world. And you look at someone like Cyndi, who had just as much talent as someone like Madonna, but unfortunately, she just kind of fizzled out, and I feel like she had so much more in her and so much more she could have done, but I mean, it is what it is. So what are your thoughts on the album? What are your opinions? A lot of people have said that this album is quite bad. So maybe you don't agree with them. Maybe you think they're wrong. Maybe you love this album and you love the songs. And tell me why in the comments. What did you think of this album back in 1989? And what do you think of it now in 2020? Like I said already, I am quite indifferent to the album, and it won't be a Cyndi Lauper album I'll go back to anytime soon. There are a couple highlights on the album, a couple songs I really enjoy, but I don't like it as much as True Colors or She's So Unusual. To me, this album was a step down, but that's my own personal opinion. I just feel like it lacks the personality that she brought to her other 2 albums. The personality isn't there, and because of that, I just find a lot of the songs are very forgettable and a little generic at times. So now that we're done this album, A Night to Remember, in my next Cyndi Lauper video, we'll move on to her fourth studio album from 1993 called Hat Full of Stars. Even though I wasn't the biggest fan of this album, I'm still excited to continue on with my Cyndi Lauper discography journey. So I think that's all I wanted to say on the album. Once again, leave your comments, tell me what you thought of it, and yes. So thanks for watching. You can find me on Instagram, you can find me on Twitter, you can message me, you can tell me other artists I should check out. I'm open to any artists from any decade. You can find me on Apple Music, you can check out my playlists, and so on and so forth. So thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. Take care.